views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. Now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Hey, merry meet everybody, and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron here on the Para X Radio Network. Tonight's opening song was May the Circle Be Open, and it's really not a song, it's more of a chant. But casting circles in my world is pretty much commonplace, and it's a very old practice. The circle is primarily used as a place to concentrate power and to perform acts of witchcraft, particularly those involving manifestations of spirits and transformations. And it's a kind of a magical protection for everybody. And when we work with spirits, as we will be doing tonight, it's never a bad thing to do. Now, my guest is Spirit Advocate Bonnie Vent, and we're going to be doing another live channeling event tonight with Bonnie for a couple of reasons. The first being that when Bonnie was here the last time doing the live channeling session, an overwhelming majority of the listeners pretty much insisted that I have her back really soon. But secondly, and this is coming from me, there's been so much chaos and tragedy happening in the world lately. I was curious to find out what the heck seems to be going on with things like the massacre in Orlando a couple of weeks ago. It just seems like every time you turn on the news, something horrific is going on. And so I thought this would be a good time to ask a few questions and see why there is so much of this happening. We've received lots of questions from Bonnie's Facebook page, the Connection Community. But if any of you here in the Para X chat room wish to ask a question, please send it to me in private chat. Okay, Bonnie, hi, and thank you for doing this again.
Hi, Marla, and hi out to the listeners.
It should be interesting.
It's always interesting. I'm just very glad we have no technical difficulties this time. Well, of course, I've said that way too soon, haven't I?
Well, you have, and actually the other one where you sounded like it was an echo and it was really spooky, really was kind of interesting. This is just kind of normal and good, but yeah, the other one had a little bit of different color to it, which wasn't so bad. And as you're channeling, we don't know what's coming up. I mean, I'm going to be asking the questions that were sent in, or if we get any in the chat room privately to me. But you just, we were talking about this before the show started. You just never know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to come out of this.
No, I never know what information is going to come through. And that's, it's part of the process of channeling is a certain amount of trust, a lot of trust. That the information coming through is actually good quality information and of the highest possible good. And so that's one of the first things you have to learn if you're going to do this work is to trust in my case, it's the Connection, which is actually a group, at least that's the way they express themselves as a group, that all channel into one voice, which I then hear and it comes directly through me. So when I tune in to light trance, the words that you're hearing are actually a composite of the information that they want to convey out to the people who've asked the questions, the people that are listening, and also to me, because I have to live in the 3D world too.
Mm-hmm. And you might want to kind of explain the channeling process. Are you going into trance, or how do you do, that kind of thing? Because some people may not know.
Well, for me, there's a lot of different modalities I work in. For tonight, what we're going to be doing is a relatively light trance. So I'm actually, for want of a better way of putting it, sitting off to the side. So I can hear the information that's coming out of my mouth as it comes out. but I won't necessarily remember that much about it afterwards. But I am still aware. People that go into deeper trances talk about going off and, you know, doing other things while this information is coming out. But actually the connection mentioned this a long time ago, that they really prefer the lighter trance. It's easier on the medium to not go in so deeply. And I know you mentioned this last time. It's like, you know, gee, you came out of that fresh as a daisy. It's actually energizing to me. It's not exhausting. And some people have a different experience. They come out of it and, you know, they're just about half dead. And so that process actually works very well. But there's other modalities that I work in too. Some of the work that I've been doing with Michael and with the connection group that's on Facebook is they pose the questions and then I tune in and I actually type the answers out in Microsoft Word and then record them and I'll make them a video ultimately for YouTube. So that's a different way of working, but it's still a matter of opening up and allowing the information to come through and to flow. And so I'm actually, in that case, I'm typing it as quickly as I'm hearing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wasn't laughing when you were talking about people coming out of trances, but I did mention this last time that when Tim and I would do the Halloween seance, the last time we did one, he came out of it drooling on his keyboard. And I mean,
that would be very embarrassing. I wouldn't want to do that.
Tim, it was really funny. But yeah.
I was going to say, does he normally drool on his keyboard? Maybe this is, no, I'm just kidding.
Don't always video Skype with him. I sometimes, you know, you never know. But yeah, so I mean, it does affect people in different ways. And the light trance seems, even when I was doing an event with Kenny Kingston, the Psychic to the Stars, the late Kenny Kingston, actually, for those who may not know, we did a seance, and he actually did go just into a light trance, and it just felt so much lighter than some mediums that just get, you know, completely engrossed in it. There's a less amount of like heaviness in the air. I think it's hard to explain. You got to be there to feel it to know.
When you mentioned his name just now, he said, "Oh, sweet spirit."
No, see?
Yeah.
Yes. But it's yeah, everybody works a little bit differently, but the bottom line is what I think that people need to know, because it's like any of us that do readings in general, it's like, don't blame us, we're just the messengers.
Right.
And because, you know, you have to say what you hear, you have to say what you get, and you're talking for them, they're not talking through you exactly, like, you know, some channelers will let the spirit take over the body and the voice, but still you can't edit what you're going to say, and so people just have to understand that whatever comes out of you is coming directly from them, and you know that may be good or may be bad. It depends on the case.
Well, for the most part, the connection doesn't swear, so I think we're okay.
No, well, sure. I bet they do when you're not listening.
Oh, they might. They might.
I almost said, well, they're only human, but, you know, I had to take that back.
Well, you know, it's kind of a funny thing because, you know, you think of them being, you know, these higher level beings and above it all and, you know, advising us, you know, people trying to live a life in 3D. But sometimes I can actually sense a frustration in them. So they do have some emotion. It's a little different, you know, they're trying to get, you know, on mission, and if things are not going the way that they hoped that they would, there's like a little sense of frustration that I get from it.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it's like Data on Star Trek. After a while, he started developing emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that could be.
I think they have great empathy for us, because our job is not an easy one, especially not, you know, in the times we're living in now.
That's for sure. And I also want to mention that while the connection is with you at always and Michael, even if a question is asked to one or the other, you can't guarantee who might be answering the question. And it's possible for others to come through as well, correct?
It is, and what we've noticed in the past is that depending upon the nature of the question, the connection may come through first, and then Michael will add to their comments. And what he's trying to do is provide something that's a little bit more relatable for us, since he just, finished living a life here. He can answer questions in a way that is more on a similar level. Because what you find with the connection is they tend to speak on high. They're looking from a very high level perspective. And of course everything is peaceful and calm and quiet. And it's like if we go up in an airplane and we're traveling over the countryside and we look down, everything looks fine. Because we can't see the people, having fights or dramas or situations. Everything looks exactly as it should be. So they tend to have that higher level perspective. So he actually adds a little bit more color to the picture that's trying to be painted, I think. So it's helpful in that sense. And in some ways, because he's very well known, not really on a personal level, but because of his fame, people tend to know a lot about him. And some of the things I found really fascinating was him talking about actually recreating Neverland Ranch on the other side. And then this little bit of humor about, isn't it nice because you don't need workmen and you don't need permits and, go through all the red tape. You can just say, hey, this is what I want this to look like, and create it. And that's very cool information. He's also talked to us about the fact that he is now creating music in the dimension that he is in that is to be received over into the 3D dimension. And that when he was alive, he was on the receiver end. Now he's on the creator end. And it's interesting because just a few days after he gave us that information, here comes out this science article that they have managed with CERN apparently to tap into an area that is not normally recognized by human beings, and that there's actually music stored there. And also if you look into string theory, talks about the same thing, is that strings of vibration. And so for him to talk to you about the creation of music over in another realm is quite a whole, that's something that the connection would not be able to give you the information in a presentable way like he can. Because he was so fastidious about every little note, every little thing that he did. And so, he knows all the mechanics of music, which I do not. So he's, Michael's trying to relate that to us in a way that we can understand. And, no wonder we're drawn to it, and it causes emotions in us depending upon the nature of the music. So even common sense tells you that, there's, what is it about music that draws us in?
Tons of different reasons.
Well, like even in movies, they'll put in the very suspenseful music to let you know that, someone's getting ready to jump out, or don't go in the basement, and you know that by the music, not by what you're actually seeing on the screen, because they're not showing you anything. They're showing you an empty hallway, but something's going to jump out at any second because of the music.
I think they do that because they think that we're too stupid to figure it out, so they really need to prompt us all the way through the show.
Well, don't we all know not to go in the basement, and luckily in California we don't have basements, so we're
that's it. Yeah.
so we're good.
We never have to worry about that, Bonnie. We don't have a basement to go into. I also want to mention that, because I don't know how much time we're going to get towards the end, but you are videotaping this on your end. So people will be able, if they'd like to, please come listen to the podcast, but if you'd like to also see it, you'll have it available. So people can see exactly what was going on during this whole session. So where can people find it if they're interested?
It'll be on, and all of the things that we're talking about, everything I do, I document. And so you'll find it on my YouTube channel, which is under my name, Bonnie Vent. Or you can just do a search on YouTube and you'll find it. I put things in playlists, and so everything that relates to the work that I'm doing with the connection and Michael are all in one playlist. And so you can see the evolution of it also as we go through.
Yeah, that's great. I just wanted to make sure we got that in, because a lot of people would like to actually see what you look like and what you look like when you're doing this. And, you know, you just never know what might, you know, fly past you or something. You just don't know. So, anyway.
Well, you know, the reason why I document everything now, one, you know, the information, I like to get it validated if I can, because it's important that, you know, it's not just idle chit chat that, you know, they say something and then the information comes in that validates that information. That makes the huge difference to me, that we get, you know, some scientific backup or something that we can hold on to that says, okay, you know, this has been checked into in more than one way, and this information is making sense. And the other thing too that we noticed is that there'll be, or can possibly be, anomalous activity happen around me while I'm working. When I go into the deeper trance state, my eyes will modulate side to side, which, you know, you can have an illness and have that happen, but that doesn't happen to a normal person. And it would happen all the time. It wouldn't just happen when you were channeling. And so there's actually some physical things, because I expect everybody to be skeptical of the process. And but you know, the information that the connection puts out tends to be very positive and very helpful, and has a very good feel to it. So even if you just drink it in that way, just the energy that's created. And of course, some people saw the last video and they said, I couldn't concentrate because I saw your dog walking back and forth and she's so cute. And so Harlee will probably be in and out as well. We've already heard her bark a couple of times.
Yeah, puppies allowed, it's okay. That's the way we roll here. Whatever they do is pretty much okay, for the most part. All right, so we've got a lot of questions to get to tonight. So Bonnie, let me know when you're ready, and then we'll get started with the first question.
Okay. When I am ready, the connection will come out and greet you, so you'll know.
Okay, thank you.
Greetings, Marla, and to all that listen to this broadcast. We are broadcasting in more than one dimension, which I thought you might find interesting. There was a lot of talk about broadcasting in 3D in the different formats, but this information also broadcasts multi-dimensionally. We just bring this up as a point of interest, and at some point, hopefully, scientists will catch up with the work that we are trying to do. We are very much aware that some are looking in this direction, and we appreciate the bridge between the metaphysical and the scientific.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Got a lot of questions, so let me get started. The first question is from Irina, and she says, I'm going to pose the following question first, as it has been on my mind. I would like to know more about what is being referred to in our dimension by some channels as the Akashic Records. I understand it may just be a name assigned to a particular locale by people in 3D, and that it may not have an actual title, or does it? Is this the library the connection was referring to in past sessions? Or is the library part of this other dimensional structure? Also, What is its purpose in relationship to planet Earth? Does each planet have a record of this type? And what's the best way to access it?
That is a mouthful of a question. Let's try and sort this out. The library that we refer to is the record of all. And we understand that this sounds a little strange to you, but everything is stored in the library and is available for access. Some people have focused their energies on being able to access these records when it is helpful for a healing process for someone who's currently living a life in 3D. These records also will come back into play when you transition during the life review process. But all things are stored in the library, and access can happen to multiple things at multiple times. Once again, a little hard to explain, but it works upon the creation of a thought and the requirement of knowledge. And the knowledge will advance forward for you to access, if that makes sense.
It does, and that's very simply put. It is a library. Everybody's life is there. Past lives are there as well. This is where it gets complicated, though. But yeah, it is available to people that can, are interested enough and can kind of focus their energy and go visit the Akashic Records. So yeah, that's a very good question, and I think a lot of people aren't sure or weren't sure what it was, but that's a good start, some food for thought. All right, the next question is from Elijah, and this is, I think, a very generic question, and maybe you can figure out exactly what he's asking, but it's a very simple, generic question. Is change going to come?
Absolutely. Change comes all day, every day, minute to minute, moment to moment. If you're referring to a shift in 3D, you are already experiencing some of these shifts, which actually has to do with the question that Marla had originally, which is, why are all these things happening that seem to be distasteful to us all at the same time? And they do seem to be happening in quick succession, whereas they used to be further and farther between. There is a dropping away of the business of usual in 3D, and you are being invited to look at other opportunities and other ways of being. This is not supposed to create fear, but it can in some. So we would like to say to you, please do not be fearful. You will personally be going through a lot of transitions. You will be potentially having friends and family drop away from you if you are on the ascension path, which not everyone is, and that's completely fine. But if you are noticing that you feel more aware of what's going on around you, and maybe your awareness is triggered by the fact that you're disturbed by what you see going on around you, don't hold on to the fact that you're disturbed, just hold on to the awareness and why that particular thing might be occurring at that particular time. And also what you can do as an individual with the information that you're getting in your awareness. People tend to go into helplessness. I'm only one person, what can I do? Please understand how incredibly powerful that you are. And I would also like to reference back to the song that Marla played, because circles of unity are very, very important as you move forward. Finding people that are like-minded. Also being very kind to one another and not so judgmental. It separates you from people when you judge. So it's a new perspective of the way the events are occurring. And things that, structures that you're used to seeing in governments are tending to look at this point like they're falling apart. And they're going to be recreated in a different way. So your observation that things seem to be falling apart is a correct observation, but you need to go that one step further to what opportunities are going to be created, because we're not going to be stuck in this old way anymore.
Okay, good question. I mean, good answer. One thing I want to bring up right now is we referred to 3D several times, and 3D is basically just the dimension that we are living here. We as human beings in the here and now, we're in 3D. So that it's not like some secret code or something like that. It's just the way that we're being referred to is where we are. All right, so got a question from Benita, and she says, I believe energy connects all things through all dimensions. The veil we experience here in 3D sometimes keeps us from directly learning how we can best use our personal power to accomplish goals. How can we more easily gain assistance from other spirit beings, humans, to work in a cooperative effort to accomplish these goals? Do we need to just open our hearts and join the flow with guides standing by to help us, just waiting for our openness or honest exchange? Or is the seeking and the struggle part of the lesson and the experience that we must gain?
It can be all of those things. Sometimes the struggle is unnecessary. Struggle can also be an unwillingness to let go. And if you're in that situation, the recognition of letting go and not being so invested in a particular outcome can actually free you up to see and observe more opportunities. If you're expecting one particular opportunity and these particular people to come in, that these particular people are going to help me where I need to go, then you limit the opportunities that can be presented, and you become dependent upon those other people to interact in the way that you are trying to create for your path. Their paths are going to be different, and what they're trying to do can wind up at cross purposes with you. Not intentionally, but just because everyone is creating simultaneously. So the more open and broad you are with getting down your path, the more joy you're going to have and the less struggle. The struggle is really with the holding on and the expectation of a particular result.
I think that's kind of human nature, is to hold on, and a lot of times way too long. It's one of the foibles that it's hard to break, I think, but we all do it. All right, Karen Phillips says, she wants to know if we will all be together with the ones that we love on the other side, even when we weren't together down here in 3D.
There are such things as family groups, and if people are a member of your family group, then you will tend to incarnate with them at the same time. To not be here with them physically, it doesn't mean that they are not here physically. It just means that your path hasn't crossed with their path. So if you want to refer to it as a family group, a soul group, then odds are very good that you will see them when you transition, depending upon when they transition. Doesn't necessarily have to be that way. It's just a tendency that people like to all come in at the same time to fulfill particular purposes. So it's not a mandatory thing. It's not a solid fact kind of thing. It just tends to be the way it works out.
Well, we can kind of pick and choose, can't we? Because I've heard people say this many times, that once they get over to the other side, they do not want to see, their father or their step-parent or, a friend that did them wrong on this side. And they're afraid, some people are afraid to cross over because they don't want to see those people. So we do have the choice of who we can kind of, jump in the sandbox with, right?
We do, and also during life review, you will get a potentially different perspective upon that person that you felt hurt you and what the purpose was for that encounter. So you may have a change of heart as you go through the life review process. But not everyone sees everyone else on the other side any more than you do here. You know lots of people throughout the course of your life, and they're there for a time, and then they go off and do other things. So same is true after you transition. And in some ways more, because you don't have the constraints of the physical anymore, and you're much more about the creation and the projects that you want to work on. So if you're trying to work on a project where you feel you need a particular spirit person to come in to assist you, then you can request that they come work with you and collaborate. They have the choice as to whether they want to do that or not.
Well, choice is really important, so that's definitely a good thing. Now, you mentioned, we were talking a little bit earlier about the chaos and tragedy that's been going on in our world lately. And it's, that has to do with a lot of change going on. But some people will say that what's going on now is unnecessarily evil and bad, that it's rampant, it's totally out of control. And so the question is, what is behind all this negativity for change? Why can't change be a little bit more positive? Why do so many lives of innocent people have to be lost, and so many people just going around doing unspeakable things?
On a less personal level, you're seeing the breakdown of your governments and the way these governments function. And there's a lot of fear associated with the people that participate in the government and the things that they have done and the arrangements that they have made, and trying to hold on to their positions of power and control. So that's part of it, is what's going on with the governments. Personally, people tend to be very fearful and are lashing out. And there's plenty of opportunity with the current technology to feel free to do that, because you don't have to be accountable. You're not standing in front of that person's face saying the things that you're typing, for instance. And so it's really a choice for people on an individual basis how they're going to be. Do they want to jump onto the feeding frenzy of negativity, or do they want to do something differently? So it's being presented in such a very obvious way. It has been more subtle in the past. Now it's very obvious. And a choice needs to be made on an individual basis as to how you're going to deal with that energy when you observe it. And observe is the key word. You do not have to get yourself emotionally involved with negativity. You can just observe and release it as not being yours, not being part of something that you want to be involved in. If you're fighting for something that's righteous and justice, same thing. You can gather people's energy together to fight for a particular cause, and you can make a huge, huge difference in the outcome if you band together for good. So there again, as you observe the negative, you can decide to change that energy and do something positive with it, or you can decide to ignore it, and in which case the negative energy will dissipate.
Okay, thank you. Got a question from Doug. He said, please ask, is a crossing a good thing or a bad thing? I think he's talking about when they're the ghost soldiers and they help cross spirits over. And so I think what he's asking, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And you might answer this too while you're at it. I've always thought that spirits have free will, and if they cross, they can come back. You know, it's not like you're banishing them to Boogie World or something, you know. So do they have the if they do get crossed and ask for help, a lot of them do and want to go over, but in my way of thinking, they can't come back. So is a crossing a good thing or a bad thing, and can they come back at will?
Yes, they can. And when you're talking about spirits that hang back and decide to stay very close to the 3D realm, they're doing that for a number of reasons. And when the reasons are no longer the case, then they will successfully transition. So they are actually choosing to be in the location where they are for a particular purpose. So to just say that, oh, I can just tell you, you need to cross over and assume that they do, would not be a correct assumption. They can be talked to and communicated with, and if they decide at that point in time that they want to leave, then obviously they have the choice to do that. And they can always come back whenever they choose to do that as well. The most common would be family members where we sense their presence, and they're just stopping by to see how things are going and how you're doing. So it's not in the traditional sense of hauntings and things like that. It's more just family members touching base with each other. But when you get into situations where people have had sudden death and they're angry about a particular set of circumstances, maybe they were murdered and they don't understand why, those kind of things, talking with them and getting them clarity as to what happened can have them decide to leave, but it is completely their choice. You cannot force them to leave. You can ask them to leave and go somewhere else, and if they're bothering you, and if they decide to honor that, they're people just like we are. If they decide to be a jerk and they don't want to leave, then they might not. If they're a nice person and they're bothering you or they're bothering your animals or that kind of thing, then they may decide to leave and go somewhere else or not be as present.
Okay. Zena is saying, I'm interested in any information regarding heaven and earth being one, including how and or when our perception changed regarding staying connected to loved ones who've crossed over, and how to heal grief/loss.
There is no doubt that when someone transitions, the people that remain here are very sad by their loss, and it is not the same as when they were here physically, and you could pick up the phone, for instance, and have a conversation with them. But they're not that far away either. So as you continue on through the process of recognizing that they are no longer in the 3D with you, you can remember that you can communicate with them. And even if you do not have the ability to hear them, you can, most people, if they really pay attention, can see signs and know that that person is present. They say that they feel their presence, and then they dismiss it as not being true or being their imagination. It's not your imagination. If you're sensing it, if you're feeling it, then honor that and have that be a comfort to you. Even if you talk out loud to them and you feel silly for doing it, go ahead and do it. It will make you feel better. And you will be able to, if you pay attention. There again, most people ask for signs and then the signs are very subtle and they don't notice them. Or they say, oh, well, is this a sign? Is that a sign? Of course they are. Of course they are. Just take it that it is. This will help you with the process. And also from the higher level perspective, you are here for a very, very short time. And if you do want to see them again after you leave here and they want to see you, then that you can do that. It's just like here. There's no difference. If you decide you want to still be friends or friendly or have a relationship, then that relationship can continue after you leave here.
Okay. Claudette has a question. She said, I'd like to know if our spiritual guides are assigned to us or if they choose to work with us, and also, are they with us throughout our whole lives?
Guidance can change depending upon what the spiritual path is of the person who has reincarnated. So you can start out with one particular guide that will take you through to a certain phase and then transition over into additional guidance depending upon, like I say, the nature of your path. Most people have at least one that they should, I recommend, try and get in contact with and at least acknowledge their presence, even if you can't hear them or sense them. And don't be afraid to ask them for assistance, as you do need to ask in order for them to be able to assist. So everyone is given this guidance. No one expects you to get through life without it. People do because they don't acknowledge that the guidance exists. There again, an issue of trust. Trust that it does. Don't dismiss it as your imagination. And listen very carefully. We all have that inner voice that we hear. Listen very carefully to what it's saying to you. Document what is being told to you when you ask for information. It may take some time before that information makes sense to you. So go back and look at it after the fact. Let a few weeks go by or a month go by and go back and look at that information and then ask for more. And it's a spirit of cooperation. So they are assigned to you. They have agreed to work with you, but they can't interfere.
Okay. Arena says that Jane Mercurio has asked her to post a couple of questions on her behalf because she's traveling and has limited access. So I'm trying to get everybody at least one question from everybody in. The question is, I would like to learn more about the Council of Elders and how they and our guides help us with our pre-planning life sessions where we choose our parents and significant aspects of our next incarnation.
That process does indeed exist, and they're some ways similar to the people that do the life review at the end, that they also do the kickoff of the next one. The elders do not necessarily get involved unless there's some compelling reason for them to. It doesn't happen at that high of a level necessarily. You can wind up in touch with the elders if you get into, once you're incarnated, if you get into a crisis point where you need that level of guidance as to what you're going to do. Those tend to be rather life and death sort of situations that will put you into that. There are groups such as our group, The Connection, that you can also be in contact with. So the elders are actually a higher group than some of these other groups that form that are guidance for individuals and for individual groups. I don't know that I've explained that very clearly, just to say that there is a hierarchy here. And so your management, if you want to put it into a business level, your management is much closer to you than the CEO of the company, for instance, which would be the elder level.
Okay. Another question from Sharon in the chat. She says, what about walk-in souls?
I have heard this term before, but I don't know that it exists in any way. There are people that tend to potentially change their personality due to events, but for one spirit to leave and another to enter the same body, which is the interpretation that I believe you're discussing, that does not happen. It doesn't need to happen. We just create from new and let the person go through the process. There's really no compelling reason for a spirit to walk into someone else's body and to have the other leave, because then their spiritual process comes to an end at that point, and it's a transition. There may be rare occasions where that could occur, but not on a common basis.
Okay, yeah, I've heard the term too. And it's kind of an interesting concept, it really is. I'm just going through, I don't want to miss anybody, so I'm going through things. Lisa says, it seems like a lot of people are trying to call upon you, and I think she's referring to Michael, I think. She's not saying for sure. Can you give me a description of what the accession wave was all about? And those who might have thought they were in tune to the higher vibration feel they missed it.
If you have chosen to be on the ascension path, then you have not missed it. There are times where things get very quiet, and it is a sometimes transition in guidance, sometimes taking you to the next level, sometimes waiting for the next download to occur. So if you have agreed to be on the ascension path, you have not missed it. You just need to wait, and it will start up again. So please be patient.
Okay. Another one that Irina passed on from Jane. Does your soul have a knowing of all the lives that you've lived in the afterlife? Michael, are you a blend of all your past lives, or do you remain separate?
Once you transition, you are a blend of all of your experiences, which would include all of the lives that have been lived prior. You can, however, separate out the most recent if there is need to do so. In Michael's case, he has chosen to stay closer to 3D for his own reasons, mostly due to his family that he would like to keep an eye on. So the answer is yes to both. You can be still the individual spirit that people would recognize that are living here now, that knew you when you were living here. But you are also the sum of all of your experiences. And that's even true when you're in 3D. It's just for the most part, you don't have access to that information. But you can, through hypnosis, you can get access into other lives that you've lived. Tends to be because there's a need for you to know and to bring skill sets and information forward into your present life, either for healing or for growth or both.
Okay, now I'm trying to read a question that has about 6 questions within the question, so bear with me, and then we can go back over it if we need to. It's another one from Irina. She says, As I navigate my life, I'm seeing more and more validation for the information the connection shared with us in the past. One of the things that they have said is that the time we are given here on Earth is short. And although modern science is reporting that the human lifespan is increasing over the past decades, I find affirmation within the larger perspective in that our lifetime here is brief, especially with the present sensation of time on Earth speeding up. So I would like to know whether it is due to the current process of ascension, or does time speed up as we grow older in age? And if so, do children experience time differently than adults? Also, why are our lifetimes here so brief? Did humans live longer lifetimes on Earth in the past? And is there potential for humans to live longer in the future? And is that something to aspire to or not? And what influences are at play here? And boy, that's a mouthful. So grab what you can out of that.
Okay. So the base question seems to be about time. And time does exist in the third dimension. Time does not exist in other dimensions. The concept or perception of time is really based upon what the person is doing. And children do tend to find summer vacation to be a very long time, whereas the teacher may find it to be a very short time. So it is about perception, not necessarily about how old you are, but you could, I guess, interpret it that way. Also going on at the same time is time is also speeding up, and you'll notice that your days are actually becoming much shorter, and you're not accomplishing as much as maybe you thought you could or you used to. There are more things to deal with now because of the pulling away of the three-dimensional platform, for want of a better word. You're spending a lot of time on your balance and trying to keep balanced. And it's not really possible any longer to do things exactly the same way as you did them in the past. So more time is being spent in creation and opportunity, which tends to make it feel like it's speeding up. And in very many ways it is, because you're in a transitional time. Some people will choose not to remain through the transition. Some people will decide to go ahead and exit and leave, and then maybe reincarnate later on. So the overwhelming theme of time is short really has to do more with get accomplished what you want to get accomplished. Don't waste time on things that don't matter. Maybe that's a better way to present this as life expectancy and those sort of things. Yes, medical science is can increase people's life expectancy, but we're kind of getting to an end of that process as well. It's really more about the purpose. Once you feel like you don't have purpose to be here anymore, you have more of a tendency to want to transition, regardless of your age. You could be very young and feel that you've fulfilled everything and decide to leave. So it really depends upon the life path and what was chosen to accomplish during that life, not so much the time spent doing. Does this make sense?
To me it does. And it makes great sense that you were able to get all of those things into one thing and actually answer it. That's amazing. But then, I would expect no less. Got one more. I think we have time for the one more. From Annalisa. She said, Michael, even though this is such a bad time of the year for me, I always try to focus on the positive things. She says, sometimes I feel in the air the fight between good and bad. And I think we sort of touched on that a little bit. but she just wants him to know, she says, I have the feeling that the world got worse since you died, and love you always. So that should have been passed on.
We would like to comment on that and say that you all have the same capability for putting that good energy out that you recognized in him when he was here in 3D. It is a power that you all possess.
And we should put it to good use, in other words.
Truly, the choice between positive and negative is on the individual person. So as we say, choose love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you know, you're talking about the circle and everything, if people band together and put out the same positive feelings instead of sucking up all the negative ones, we can change our world a little bit, even though people, as you said, don't think that they can. It can make a big difference. The more people that put out the same emotion, the stronger it gets, and the more of a response happens, right?
People have gotten away from working together. That needs to return.
Mm-hmm. Well, I really want to go a little bit deeper on that, but we can't. It's just a couple of minutes till we have to leave, and I want to thank the Connection for coming through tonight. And Bonnie, can you come back for just a minute so we can say goodbye to you properly?
I would like to say for all of us, we hope that you enjoyed this session. Please take this into your hearts and walk a very positive path as you go forward in your day. Blessings.
Thank you. Blessings.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, great. And
That went really, really quickly.
It did. It really did.
My
And
gosh.
we've got like 1 minute to spare. And
Yeah.
in that minute, again, tell people where they can see the video of this broadcast, and also where they can find out more about you and the Facebook pages.
Okay, well, my base website is bonnievent.com. That's very easy. If you're on Facebook, then you just need to do a search for the Connection community. And we have a community group there. And as I do these sessions, people can ask their questions and I'll pose them. And we put everything out on YouTube. So I also have a YouTube channel, which is also Bonnie Vent. So you can find me on YouTube. Just search for Bonnie Vent, and very easy to find.
That's simple. All right. Well, thank you, Bonnie. Really
Thank you,
appreciate it. This just goes by so fast. We're going to have to do another one, but you know that story. You've got the gold key, so come on anytime and we'll do it again and get more questions, because we get some really good questions. And I really appreciate that. So again, thank you, Bonnie, and I want to thank everybody for being here tonight as well. And until next time, everybody, blessed be and merry meet again. Good night.
We hope that you've enjoyed this experience. This work is currently being done by donation. To donate via PayPal, send money to the email address gencreations@aol.com. To donate via Square Cash, the ID is $Bonnie Vent. For more information on Bonnie Vent and her books and videos on demand, please go to Amazon.com and search for Bonnie Vent. For information about her inspirational art pieces or her work as a medium, please go to bonnievent.com.